I lost everything to one bad decision. How I turned my life around is the craziest story I'll ever tell. Here I am writing about my life on Reddit because I need advice. So I used to believe that rock bottom was something you saw coming, a slow descent with plenty of chances to stop before you hit the ground. I was wrong. Rock bottom doesn't always give you a warning. Sometimes it comes in an instant. One bad decision, one reckless moment, one mistake so big that by the time you realize what you've done, the damage is already permanent. For years, I lived with the weight of that moment pressing down on me. I had a good life, a steady job, a woman who loved me, and a future that felt solid. But none of that mattered the night I made the choice that destroyed it all. I lost my job, my home, my dignity. But worst of all, I lost Em, the one person who had truly believed in me. And I didn't just lose her gradually. It wasn't a slow, painful breakup where we fought and drifted apart. It was immediate. A single night, a single action, and suddenly everything I had built was gone. Looking back now, I wonder how things could have gone differently if I had just said no instead of why not? If I had gone home that night instead of staying out, if I had listened to the warning signs before it was too late. But regrets don't change the past. I've been clean for almost 2 years now. I have a stable job, a place of my own, and a bank account that's no longer drowning in debt. My brother was the only one who stuck by me when I had nothing left, and I owe him more than I can ever repay. But even now, I feel this emptiness, because I still think about Em. I know I don't deserve her forgiveness, and I don't expect it, but I want to apologize. I want her to know that I understand what I did, that I carry the guilt of it every day. The question is, would reaching out be selfish, or do I just let her live her life without ever hearing from me again? For most of my life, I was just an average guy. I wasn't someone with a dramatic past, no history of wild partying or reckless decisions. I worked hard, kept my head down, and lived a normal, stable life. Em and I had been together for 5 years. She was the kind of person who made everything feel steady, not in an exciting roller coaster way, but in a way that made me believe we were building something real. We had plans, maybe not the biggest, grandest ones, but simple ones. A house, maybe kids down the line, a future that wasn't perfect but was ours. And then I got a new job. At first, it seemed like an upgrade. Better pay, better hours. But the culture there was different. The people weren't just co-workers. They were always together, going out after work, covering for each other's mistakes, acting like one big dysfunctional family. The kind of place where drinking on a Tuesday night wasn't just normal, it was expected. I kept my distance at first. I wasn't really the type to go out every night. But then I met Nick. Nick was the kind of guy who could talk you into anything. He had this effortless confidence, this way of making you feel like you were boring if you didn't go along with him. He wasn't just fun. He made you feel like you were missing out if you weren't with him. When he invited me out for drinks one night, I hesitated. Em and I had been arguing a little more lately. Nothing huge, just the kind of little fights that come from stress. I figured, why not? One night out wouldn't hurt. It wasn't just one night. That first night turned into many nights. It was slow at first. I'd grab a drink after work, then I'd stay out later than I meant to. Then, before I knew it, coming straight home after work felt dull. Em noticed almost immediately. She wasn't the type to be controlling, but she saw the change in me. She told me she was worried. She pointed out that I never used to drink like this, that I was staying out later, spending more money, coming home smelling like a bar. She told me she didn't like Nick, that she could see he was a bad influence. I told her she was overreacting. I wish I had listened. Drinking led to gambling, not overnight but fast enough. Nick introduced me to it. Just for fun, he said. Just a little, just a few rounds. And at first it was fun. It felt exciting, different. But then I lost $500 in a single night. Then $1,500. I started hiding how bad it was from Em. The guilt ate at me. Eventually I told her, not the full truth, not at first, but enough. She was furious but supportive. She told me I had a problem. She helped me pay off some of my worst losses. But she set a hard rule. No more Nick, no more gambling. I agreed. And for a while, I meant it. Then I lost my job. I had been making too many mistakes. My boss had noticed my performance slipping. The day they fired me, I was devastated. I should have gone home. I should have told Em. Instead, I called Nick. He told me to come out, to drink away the stress, to live a little. And that was the night everything fell apart. I was too drunk to think straight when Nick handed me something. He called it a pick-me-up, said it would make everything better, said it would take the edge off. I didn't even hesitate. I just took it. I don't remember getting home. I don't remember what I said. I don't remember anything except waking up to the sound of Em packing her bags. She had been with me for 5 years. She had stood by me through everything. But this was the final straw. She told me she loved me, but she couldn't watch me destroy myself. And then she walked out the door, and I let her go. Losing her should have been my wake-up call. It wasn't. I was jobless, drowning in debt, addicted. I burned through my savings in months. I bounced between couches, begged family for money, told myself I was just in a rough patch, that I could fix this. Then, one night, I overheard Nick and his friends talking about me. Pathetic. A lost cause. Helping him fall was half the fun. That was the moment it finally hit me. Nick was never my friend. I had nothing left. No money, no home, no real friends. And the one person who had cared about me was long gone. I wanted to change, but no one believed me anymore. No one except my brother. He had told me years ago, if I ever got serious about fixing my life, he'd help. I showed up at his door at my lowest. He almost shut it in my face. But for the first time in years, I was honest. And he let me in. It took 1.5 years to climb out of the hole I had dug, but I did it. And now here I am. Sober, stable, functional, but alone. And I keep thinking about Em. Would it be selfish to reach out? Or should I just let her go? Edit. After reading through my own post again and some of the responses, I realized there were a few things I didn't clarify enough. So, I want to take a moment to fill in those gaps. First, I noticed some people were confused about why I didn't tell Em immediately when I lost my job. The truth is, I was ashamed. I had already disappointed her so many times, and in that moment, I didn't want to face her. It was easier to call Nick because he wouldn't judge me. At least, that's what I thought at the time. I told myself I'd tell her the next morning, but by then, it was already too late. Another thing I didn't fully explain was the timeline of how my addiction escalated. It might seem like I went from casual drinking to a full-blown problem overnight, but it was more gradual. At first, it was just drinks after work. Then, it became weekends too. Eventually, I started sneaking drinks at home, hiding bottles, making excuses. The gambling was similar. I didn't start by losing thousands. It started small, but each loss made me chase another win, and before I knew it, I was in deep. I just didn't see how bad it had gotten until it was completely out of control. There were also questions about Nick. Some people wondered why I stuck around him for so long, especially after it was obvious he was a bad influence. The truth is, by the time I realized how toxic he was, I was already too dependent. He was the guy who made me feel better when I was drowning in stress. He made my bad decisions feel normal, and when I finally overheard him and his friends mocking me, it was a brutal wake-up call. But by then, I had already burned every other bridge in my life. Lastly, I want to clarify that while my brother helped me, he didn't just swoop in and fix everything. He was tough on me. He had boundaries. He made it clear that if I screwed up again, he was done. That fear kept me in check when things got hard. I think without that, I might have relapsed. I appreciate everyone pointing out these gaps. I want my story to be as honest as possible. If anything else doesn't make sense, let me know. Update 1. I decided to reach out. I spent hours overthinking it, drafting and deleting messages, trying to find the right words. It had been years. She had every right to ignore me, to block me, to hate me. But I needed to apologize, not to get her back, just to tell her I was sorry. In the end, I kept it simple. I told her I didn't expect a response, that I wasn't trying to disrupt her life, but that I owed her an apology. I admitted everything, how I had been weak, how I had let myself spiral, how I had hurt her in ways I could never undo. Then I hit send, and I waited. Days passed, then a week, then 2. Nothing. I told myself it was fine. She had moved on. She was happy now. She didn't need to hear from me, and I had no right to expect otherwise. But it still stung. I tried to move on from it, to focus on work and my routine. I had rebuilt my life from the ground up. I had a job, a place to live, stability. I reminded myself that I wasn't that man anymore, the one who had let addiction and bad decisions define him. And yet, the silence from her felt heavier than I expected. Then, out of nowhere, I got a response. She wanted to meet. I reread the message at least a dozen times. She didn't say much, just that she had read my message and that if I was serious about making amends, we could talk. No promise of forgiveness, no hint of what she was feeling, just an opening. I told myself not to overthink it. It wasn't about rekindling anything. It wasn't about trying to fix the past. It was just one conversation. We set a time and place, a neutral spot, a small cafe. I barely slept the night before, running through every possible scenario. Would she yell at me? Would she tell me to never contact her again? Would she even show up? Final update. I met up with her, and man, was it a weird but nice experience. Seeing her again after all these years was surreal. I had imagined this moment 100 different ways. Her slamming the door in my face, ignoring me completely, or worse, looking at me with nothing but pity. Because after so long and thinking of everything I had done to her made me feel worried and very guilty. But instead, she was calm. Not cold, not angry, just different. She had changed in ways I couldn't put into words. She looked happier, more settled, like she had truly moved on. And seeing that made me realize just how much time had passed. Back when we were together, we had been young, full of plans and possibilities. Now, we were two different people sitting across from each other, connected only by a past I had ruined. The conversation started carefully. She asked about my life now, what I had been doing, how I had gotten clean. I told her the truth, how hard it had been, how I had almost given up more times than I could count, and how my brother had been the only one who stuck by me. I didn't try to make excuses for what I had done. I didn't expect her to forgive me. She listened. That was the surprising part. She didn't interrupt, didn't roll her eyes or tell me I was full of it. She just took it all in. And then, when it was her turn to speak, I finally got to hear the part of the story I had never known. Em told me how much I had hurt her, not just by what I had done, but by how easily I had let everything we had fall apart. She had fought for me, tried to pull me back from the edge, but in the end, she had realized something painful. I had to want to change, and back then, I didn't. I thought she had walked away and never looked back, but that wasn't true. She had spent months wondering if she had done the right thing, questioning if she had given up on me too soon. But every time she considered reaching out, she reminded herself that she couldn't save someone who didn't want to be saved. And then she told me something that hit me harder than anything else that night. The night I overdosed. The night I had been too far gone to even realize how close I had come to losing everything. She had been the one to call emergency services. I never knew. I had assumed it was my brother or some stranger who found me, but it was her. She had been the one to call for help. Even after I had wrecked our relationship, after I had pushed her away, she had still cared, even when she had every reason not to. That night, she had heard from a mutual friend that I was in bad shape. Against her better judgment, she had gone to check on me. She found me barely conscious, my place a disaster, my body barely responding. She had been terrified, but she acted fast. She made the call, stayed until help arrived, and then walked away for good, telling herself it was the last time she would let me be a part of her life. Hearing that made me feel, I don't even know, grateful, guilty, both. I had been walking around for years thinking no one had cared, thinking I had completely destroyed everything. And in some ways, I had. But she had still been there in the background, making sure I didn't die. There was a long silence after she told me. I didn't know what to say. What could I say? Thank you for saving my life? Sorry it took me this long to realize what I had done? There was no way to make up for the past, no way to erase what had happened. But in that silence, something shifted. Em told me she didn't hate me anymore, that she had, for a long time, that she had resented me, cursed my name, wished I would just disappear. But eventually, she had realized that holding on to that anger was exhausting. She had to let it go. Not for me, for herself. She had found happiness in her own way, a new life, a new relationship. She had moved on, and she was happy, and hearing that made something inside me settle. I hadn't come here to win her back. I hadn't even come expecting forgiveness. But knowing that she had found peace, that she didn't carry the weight of my mistakes anymore, that meant everything. By the time we left, there was nothing dramatic, no big moment of reconciliation. Just two people who had been through something painful, acknowledging that the past was the past. We walked away knowing that we could finally close this chapter for good. And for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Em and I didn't get back together. I think a part of me already knew that was never in the cards. But what I didn't expect was how much lighter I felt after that conversation. It wasn't about rekindling anything. It wasn't about making up for lost time. It was about knowing that, despite everything, I hadn't completely erased the good memories she once had of me. She forgave me, not for me, but for herself, and I understood that. I had spent so many years drowning in guilt, replaying my worst mistakes, imagining what could have been if I had just made one different choice. But when I sat across from her, hearing her say it out loud, it made me realize something. I had been punishing myself long after everyone else had moved on. She told me about her life now. She was doing well, better than I could have ever hoped for her, a career she loved, friends who supported her, a life free from the chaos I had dragged her into, and she was happy, genuinely happy. Seeing that made me realize how right she had been to leave. If she had stayed, she would have been miserable, tied to someone who refused to help himself until it was too late. It hit me then. Em was the last piece of my past I had been holding on to. I had clawed my way back from rock bottom, built a new life, stayed sober, and made amends with my family. But I had never fully let go of the guilt I carried when it came to her. I had spent years convincing myself that I needed her forgiveness to move forward, that I couldn't fully heal until she gave me some kind of permission to. But that wasn't true. Em didn't just forgive me, she gave me permission to forgive myself. We ended the conversation on a good note. We didn't make promises to keep in touch, and I think that's how it needed to be. We had both moved on, just in different ways. Walking away from that conversation, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Closure. Real closure. The kind that doesn't come from fixing what's broken, but from accepting that some things just aren't meant to be repaired. I don't know what the future holds for me. I know I still have work to do. Staying clean is a lifelong battle, and there are days where it's harder than others. But for the first time in a long time, I don't feel like I'm running from the past. I can't change my worst decision. I can't undo the years I lost, but I can make sure that it was never the last mistake I ever made. And that's the craziest part of all. Thank you, Reddit, for giving me a space to share my story. Your support, tough love, and honest advice meant more than I can express. I came here looking for closure, and I found perspective. No matter where life takes me next, I'll always be grateful for this community. You all helped more than you know. Comments. Comment on OP. I'm proud of you for turning your life around, but I have to ask, why did you need Em's forgiveness so badly? I get that guilt is heavy, but it sounds like you've already been making amends by changing your life. Was this really about her, or was it about proving to yourself that you weren't the same person anymore? OP's response. I've thought about this a lot. I used to tell myself that I needed her forgiveness because of how badly I hurt her, how much she sacrificed for me, and how I threw it all away. And that's true. I did owe her an apology, but if I'm being honest, it was also about me. Em was the last person in my life who knew me before everything went to hell, before I lost my job, before the addiction, before I became the version of myself that I hated. She was the proof that I had once been a good person, and when she left, I lost that. It felt like losing the last part of the person I used to be. For years, I told myself that if she could forgive me, then maybe I wasn't as bad as I thought I was. Maybe I wasn't just the sum of my worst mistakes. But the truth is, forgiveness isn't a reset button. It doesn't undo anything. It doesn't erase the past. When Em forgave me, nothing changed except my own mindset. She didn't tell me she wanted me back. She didn't pretend the pain I caused her wasn't real. She forgave me because she had moved on. And for the first time, I realized that I needed to do the same. Not because she let me off the hook, but because holding onto the guilt wasn't helping either of us anymore. So yeah, I think part of me was looking for permission to move forward, but in the end, the only person who could give me that permission was me. Comment 2. I don't mean to sound harsh, but do you ever think about how much time you wasted? You said you lost years to addiction and bad decisions, but now that you're sober, does that time just feel gone? Like, do you ever wonder who you could have been if you had just made the right choices back then? OP's response. Every single day, I think about the job I could have had, the life I could have built, the relationship I could have still been in if I had just made one different choice. It's like standing at the edge of a broken bridge, looking at the other side, knowing that no matter how much I want to go back, I can't. That version of my life doesn't exist anymore. For a long time, I let that thought destroy me. I told myself I had wasted too much time, burned too many bridges, ruined too many opportunities to ever build something meaningful again. And honestly, that mindset is just as dangerous as the addiction was. Because regret is paralyzing. It makes you think, what's the point? It makes you believe that because you lost 5 years, 10 years, however long, it's too late to start over. But it's not. Time isn't something you get back, but it's also not something that stops moving just because you messed up. Yeah, I lost years of my life, but I don't want to lose any more sitting around mourning the past. I spent so long letting my mistakes define me. So do I think about it? Absolutely. But I don't live in it anymore. I can't afford to.